What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the CrazyFaceUno Podcast, where everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. What's your story? If you'd like to support the show today, please visit CrazyFaceUno.com. It'll help support stories like the one you're about to hear. At the store, you can purchase items from our online store or donate. And as always, I'm your host, Shane McNeely, and boy, are you in for a treat today. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our guest today, a long-time friend, Gabby Watson. Welcome, Gabby.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you today?
I am good.
I was thinking about this as we were getting going before our phone call, and we've known each other for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, like almost 10 years?
Yeah. Like so many
crazy.
of my guests, we first met at Invisible Children, but we've been at different things since then and participated in different work environments and experiences and whatever since then.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you were my roadie before I joined Invisible Children.
Whoa, I think you're right. Yeah, because I did Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Yeah, what school were you at?
I think you guys went to a church.
Okay. We went, we were at churches, high schools, colleges, so.
In Laurel, Mississippi.
Laurel. Was it Susanna Melton?
Suzanne Melton?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that was like one of our first ones.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. I think, I don't know. They all kind of blend together. It's weird. I just had Dan Krosner on the podcast, and we did Deep South together, so that he would have been on that same tour with you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's weird because like I live in Florida now, and I live just up the street from like a couple of our contacts and like some of our old like like places where we did showings and presentations and whatnot. So yeah, it's just kind of weird. It's weird to be in that same area, like.
Yeah.
But
I had no idea you lived in Florida now.
Yeah, well, that was like full disclosure to everybody. We had some timing mix-ups. You're on Central Time because you live in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for some reason I just assumed Nashville was on the East Coast or Eastern Time, and so I called you an hour ago, and you were like, I thought we were on 10 Central. I was like, oh shoot, sorry. So yeah, no, it's no big deal to me. Yeah. So okay. Well, when you came into, so it's funny because Invisible Children, I was your roadie, which is bizarre. That would have been 2010, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Fall 2010. And then you came in, did you come in just as a intern, or did you come in?
Yeah, I came in as an intern.
Because I think I was technically like it was like Susanna Hendricks, Timmy Harris, and myself were like the lead movement interns.
Yeah, so I came in as a movement intern like July of 2011.
And then I kind of like spun off and ended up not really like being part of, I mean, I was, but I wasn't at the same time. Like they took more on the mentorship and leadership, and I took on the vans and my new role in the shipping and stuff. So I kind of ventured off from that bit there. But originally we were like the three mentoring and kind of helping lead you guys, but which is interesting. And then you went, you said you went on the road later, right?
Yeah, so I was a roadie for Coney 2012.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah.
That was
Tri-State.
Tri-State. What is Tri-State?
New York? New York, New Jersey. We did Delaware, Connecticut, and then I think we did some in Pennsylvania too.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll get to that later, and you can talk about it as much as you want to, or as little as you want. It's funny because a lot of the guests I have on from Invisible Children, we really don't talk a lot about Invisible Children. Mm-hmm. And most people, it just depends. Like there's some people that are just like, I don't really need to talk about that. And I think it's just been this process of of working through some of the, I don't know. I know a lot of us that were there, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's taken some time to kind of like move past working for invisible children. And I think some of that is that for sure. And I don't know, it's an interesting thing. I have some theories, but I'll keep those to myself.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because like I have moved past invisible children, and sometimes I think back, I'm like, did I actually do that? Like it just seems
Yeah,
so
right.
long ago, and it's like so surreal. But
Yet at the
invisible
same
children
time, it's
was,
like, it feels like just yesterday.
yeah, exactly. But it was such like a big part of like my life and my story, and it came
Yeah,
at like this
same.
like really specific time in my life that I really
Mm-hmm.
needed it. And so I firmly believe that that year I spent there and the time I spent on the road and like being surrounded by all these people like really helped shape me into who I am today. So it's very interesting and very nostalgic to like think back on those times and
Mm-hmm.
how much I've grown and learned and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
same. And I feel the same way. I think it was just the time of our lives. We were young. We were still, that
We were so young.
prefrontal cortex was still growing and learning and developing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. And yet it fostered this environment of growth and
Hmm.
learning and grace and understanding. And I don't know. I owe a lot of who I am today to invisible children. And so for me,
Hmm.
it's taken me some time to like stop chasing that Narnia,
Yeah.
that perfect place. But at the same time, like I don't want to forget that. And
Hmm.
so it's just interesting to me. Like I don't know, when people are like, I don't need to talk about that. I'm like, okay, that, like, I respect that. That's totally fine. But I find it interesting because I know that it shaped a lot of who they are, but I think that
Yeah.
just we can get together and talk about that all day long, and
Yeah, for sure.
the pros and cons and good things and bad things, and it's great. And Invisible Children is still kicking and doing well. And
Yeah.
one of these days, I know I've reached out to Aaron Miller,
Oh
and
yeah.
so one of these days later on, they're going through their like yearly audit and stuff, I believe, right now. And so they're pretty busy, but she's going to come on and hopefully we can talk a little bit more about Invisible Children today and
Yeah. That's
get a
awesome.
little more information. And hopefully we can get some other people on eventually as well.
Yeah.
So I know you're a mom to a little
I am
boy.
a mom to a 2-year-old.
Ooh, how's the twos?
Yeah. It's everyone calls it the terrible twos.
Yeah.
And I can see why, but I am a big believer in like reshaping how we speak to our kids and
Hmm.
to ourselves. And
Yeah.
so like really trying to like spin that
Yeah.
from like the terrible twos to the I've heard some moms call it the terrific twos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even though, like, the temper tantrums come in strong and he has a lot of opinions and he's extremely independent,
Mm-hmm.
he is like so smart and he is so
Yeah.
funny and he's so loving. Like, I
Yeah.
am not a very, like, cuddly, touchy feely person. Like, I really like my personal space.
Yeah.
And he has turned me into such, like, a snuggler, like,
Aw.
snuggling on the couch watching TV with him is like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and I just like, when he has like a terrible temper tantrum or he's being like really defiant and it's very aggravating, I always like try to remind myself like these are signs that he's developing and that like
Mm-hmm.
his brain is growing and he is
Yeah.
just trying to figure things out and he just needs my guidance. So,
What a great
you know,
what a great like perspective. I love that. That's awesome.
yeah, I've gotten really into like our mindsets and like
Yeah.
speaking positively into
Mm-hmm.
ourselves and into our kids and into our relationships. And so,
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, but I
Yeah.
really try to like really speak to him like gently and when he's freaking out, hey, what's wrong? Like, can you use your words and like tell me?
Right.
And,
Yeah, that's
it's a
important.
work in progress, but
Mm-hmm.
we're both learning and both growing through it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, hopefully you'll just keep the same perspective and whatnot. But
Yeah.
most of the people that I know that have kids, the threes were always the worst. So
Oh yeah.
maybe
Yep.
maybe that's more to come. I don't know.
I have some friends where I'm like, the terrible twos aren't that bad. Like, he's
Yeah.
actually pretty great. And they're like, just wait. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. So preparing myself for that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I don't know, like I don't have kids yet. I know Dana and I, we want kids, and I think that's something that, one of these days we'll venture down that road. But for now, we're in a good place. But I think about that a lot. I just think about like what kind of a parent I want to be, and hearing and watching friends kind of raise their children. And I think we're in a really cool spot just because we do have so many friends and people that we know that have kids already, that kind of have different perspectives on those different life, changes and the twos. And I love that perspective as well. And it reminds me of when I was in special education, and, it's the same, there's mood regulation. There's things that just kind of throw kids off and throw some of our students off. And it's the same thing. It's like, hey, we got to find the appropriate way. Like, I understand you're upset. Like, it's okay to be upset, but tell me, like, what's wrong? Use your words, like, explain that, and allowing them to process and to use their brain to figure out why they're upset, what's going on, and how to fix it. And
yes, and that's like, we are trying to do that, like, with Hank, because like, I'm an Enneagram 5, and so I'm very much like, keep to myself, like, don't really like sharing my feelings, like all this stuff. And then my husband is an Enneagram 4, so he's just like, his feelings are very loud, and like, he feels everything, and he wants to talk about everything. So we're like, I've been diving into like, this is my Enneagram number. This is like what my personality is like. And so like, looking back on like what caused me to be this way, and like looking at like childhood trauma and childhood wounds and all this stuff. And so it's really like helped me like stretch and grow to the point where like with Hank, like, I'm having to talk about feelings with him.
Sure.
And it's like super hard for me, but I want him to know that like, he has feelings and they're valid. And instead of just getting angry about something and yelling, like, to really like, okay, you're feeling angry right now. What made you angry? So that's one of the things that we're like really trying to do, is just kind of talk through his feelings. And it's helping me to like help process my feelings and talk through my feelings. And so it's been really cool for our whole family to experience it.
You're in it together. I recently took the Enneagram test deal, and then I actually, man, it's been trying to figure it out. It's been pretty fun, but I'm sure because I think it sounds like you've dug into that a little bit. But I originally tested as a 2, which apparently is a common one to be like misdiagnosed with. And then I was reading the book. I don't know. There's a popular book.
Road Back to You.
Yeah, that's the one. And I was kind of, I mean, there's still some 2 that kind of pops out, for sure. But I'm a 4 for sure. And
I can see that.
I'm a lot of 4. And my wife's a 9, like a hard 9.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I mistyped as. A 9.
Yeah, and so it's been fun. Like, we both, I made her listen, because I was listening through the book and using Audible and whatnot, and I got to 9 and I started laughing. We were in Miami, like, we had a free weekend in a hotel down there, and I was like listening through the book, sitting on the beach, and I started laughing. And I know you're not supposed to like tell people like you're this, but I was like, I know what you are, like, haha, like. And she was like, yeah, whatever. And she listened to it. And
so funny.
It's funny because she's really like now listening to like the 9 and kind of understanding that, and she's listened to the 4 and listened to some of the other ones, and it's funny because she thinks about it now, of like counteracting like her 9-ness, and at work and stuff, the things that kind of like she knows now. She's like, oh, this is just part of who I am. Now I got to combat that, and this is how I do that. And it's been really cool. She'll even come home and be like, it's been really awesome to think about that. Like, when I get nervous about something, or when I get, like trying to avoid something, like, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, and facing that, which is really cool. I feel like I'm the opposite with the 4, which is classic 4 as well. But I'm just like, oh, like, crap. Like, how do I get out of this? Like, I don't like, whenever I start getting emotional or getting like melancholy or getting, I don't know, just over the top. I'm always like, dang it. But it feels so real and
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah. The Enneagram has been such a cool tool for us because, like, I don't know, I've always just felt like an outcast my entire life and
Yeah.
like trying to figure myself out. And like, there were some like characteristics about myself that I was like, I don't like that. Like, why do I do that?
Yeah.
And then it was maybe like 5 years ago. It was actually when my husband and I had first started dating, and he introduced me to the Enneagram.
Okay.
He was like, you need to take this. And so I took it and like found out I was a 5 and read about it. And I was like, oh my God, like, I don't feel like an outcast anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I'm reading this, I'm like, that's why I do that, and that's why I feel this way. And so it's like helped me so much, like kind of own myself and like own those personality traits and like
Sure.
figure out how to get healthier. And I don't know, it's just been really cool to like go down that road and like figure out myself.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're listening and you're not familiar with what we're talking about, I think it's ENNEAGRAM, right?
Yeah.
Enneagram. Check it out. And The Road Back to You is an excellent book to start off on, and just to read through those different numbers. And basically the whole idea is that there are 9 different like traits, but he even mentions in the book, which I really appreciated, where it's like you've got, there's how many billion people in the world, like 7+ billion people in the world. And he's like, obviously not everybody fits into 9 different categories. But if you look at it as in when you go to a hardware store and you look at the paint section, how there's like the red, your red, blues, oranges, whatever. And there's just different variations and different combos and combinations of those. And I really like that because I think it kind of allows people to like, oh, I'm a little bit of this, I'm a little bit of that. Like, I really resonate with this. This is not me, or, whatever it is. It's really, really cool. I'm learning more about it, and it's just been a really fun tool, like you said. Are there other, as you've kind of explored that, have you read other books or read other pieces of literature or anything you would recommend?
So I'm trying to think. I have only read The Road Back to You, which I highly recommend. Like, he
same.
is just, the authors are brilliant. I think they also have a podcast, which is really cool to listen to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. My husband, actually, he's like an Enneagram expert. He has all the books.
Yeah.
And I can't think of any right now, but I know that, like, I think Richard Rohr, who's like the father of the Enneagram, he has a bunch of books out there.
I think I have that one and just haven't started it yet. But
yeah, there's a lot of really great books out there. But I would definitely start with The Road Back to You. It really helps you kind of figure out what you are. And because, I mean, they have the test you can take, but sometimes the tests don't seem very accurate. And so I love that in The Road Back to You, he's like, hey, read these things, and whichever one you relate to more, that's probably what you are.
Well, and with the test, it's, for me, I've changed over time, so it's like, is it, they say in the test, it's like, well, the one that most describes you, like best describes you, but it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, well, I'm trying to change that. So I don't know, like I've made really good progress in not being that, but this, like, so which one do I answer? I don't know. It's just hard.
Classic 5, when I take the test, I'm like, I don't know. Am I that way? Like, I can't make a decision. I'm like, I mean, do other people perceive me this way? I don't know. Like, but how do I perceive myself? And it's just like, oh God, you're overthinking it.
And classic 4, I'm like, I'm all of these. Like, I don't know which one. Like,
you're either all or none.
Yeah.
I'm not like any of these people.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. Anyway, I could talk about the Enneagram all day.
I know. Let's move on. What else are you up to these days?
Yeah, so I am just so insanely busy.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time mom.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're a full-time mom, which is busy enough just with that. So.
Yeah. So like, I mean, on top of that, like, I am a photographer, and so I was doing a lot of wedding photography,
cool.
but I actually stopped that because weddings can be intense.
Yeah.
So now I've just kind of been, it's not my main stream of income, so it's just kind of been a fun, like, almost project now. Like,
sure.
I'll do a few, like, mini sessions, especially during, like, the fall and winter, getting ready for Christmas. But I've been just taking on a lot of projects that just really excite me, trying to get back into, like, why I started photography and what I love about it. so that's been fun. And then I work part-time for Warby Parker.
Oh, cool. I
So
didn't know you were working
yeah,
for them.
yeah, it's been super cool. I started in January, and so I get to work from home, and so that's awesome. So I can
Nice.
continue to be a stay-at-home mom. Um, and then I actually just started working for another company. It's called Monate. Work with a
Yeah.
really incredible team
Very
of
cool.
girls, and hustling there. And so just got a lot going on. My
Yeah.
plate is
What's your
full.
what's your position with Warby Parker?
Yeah, so I'm an order processing associate.
Okay.
So when you order your glasses and you send in like a picture of your prescription, like my position, the other people in this position, we transcribe prescriptions and stuff. So super easy. I'm super thankful for it. It's been
Yeah.
awesome.
Cool. That's awesome. And then Monet, it's like is it hair
Yeah.
products
So
or is it?
yeah, it's
Okay.
a hair care and skincare company. It's all like non-toxic products.
Yeah.
It's a network marketing company, which is something that I was like, I would never ever do something like that.
Yeah.
But my team and my mentors are just absolutely incredible. But I've also I've struggled with some like weird health stuff like in the past few years.
Sure.
And I like completely got rid of everything, like all products in my house, and switched to all non-toxic products.
Yeah.
And the one thing I was never able to find was like hair care.
Mm.
And so you have a baby, your hair falls out. My hair was like insane. I couldn't find anything to like help it. And then a couple months ago, my friend approached me. She was like, "You need to try this." And so I tried the products and I loved them.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, let's see what we can do with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been awesome. Like, it has exceeded all of my expectations. And it's just been like, it's been a blessing and a real gift to be able to not only like advocate for a product that I really love and that I believe in and advocate for like non-toxic living, but also to be in this amazing community of women that we just like, and we have a text thread and we uplift each other and encourage each other. Like even in simple things, like I text them before you call and I was like, I'm about to be on a podcast and I'm really nervous. And they're like, you got this. You're going to do great. You're like, you're a
Yeah.
boss. And so it's like, other than just, selling shampoo, like we really have like a good girl gang and it's just been incredible.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
important. I mean, it's just important in life, and it's something that being new to Florida is
Yeah.
stretching me for sure. I'm doing fine, and I get this is honestly, it's like therapeutic for me to catch up and talk with people because I feel connected
Absolutely.
still, and versus moves in the past, you feel so isolated. Like if I didn't have this outlet and the ability to chat with people and talk with people that I consider friends and, whatever, it would be a much different time that I would be having for sure. But yeah,
And I
it's,
get that. Like I mean, I've been in Nashville for almost 7 years and I had like a really like tight community. And then like everyone moved away and then I got pregnant and then I had Hank and like becoming a mom, like I feel like I was like, where did my friends go?
yeah,
It's like an interesting time because like I still
sure.
have like a bunch of close friends who like aren't married and don't have kids, but like I don't know, like your lives just go in different directions
Mm-hmm.
and it was like hard for me to like keep things going with some friends and like relate to each other and like
Yeah.
it's taken me a couple years to realize that like it's okay for people to be in your life for a season
Yep.
and like even though there are people I don't talk to anymore and I don't really see anymore, like they still have a special place in my heart and I know if we got together we'd pick up where we left off, but
Yep.
I get that. Like my first 2 years, well, maybe like first year and a half staying home with Hank, like was a really lonely time. And so
Yeah.
I get that. Even though I was in my city, like it was still like really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's just it's just part of life, and it's
Yeah,
something you
it
just got to
is.
go through it. I think it challenges and stretches, and even with having a kid, and I can't relate to that, but I can relate on the other side of things where I see
Hmm.
friends that it's like, man, it's really hard to connect with them just because they do have kids, and it's hard for them to get away, and just
Oh yeah,
understanding that and knowing that sometimes is difficult, and and it's just part of life, but
it is.
um, we're all in this together. We got to have each other's
We
back, right?
are. Yeah.
Well, Gabby, if we are to look back on your life, if we're to go back in time, back to childhood, how would you describe your childhood?
Um, Man, my childhood, I mean, obviously it had like some hard times and
Yeah.
stuff there, but I grew up on a 250-acre farm in South Mississippi.
Okay.
So when I think back on my childhood, I just have like fond memories of, my dad and my uncle would cut like trails through the woods. And so we'd go like ride
Yeah.
four-wheelers and like play in the mud and swim in the lake with the cows. And
Yeah.
I had horses and all my cousins lived close to me. So, all of the good outweighs all of the
Yeah.
bad
That
with
sounds
my
so
childhood.
fun.
Like
Yeah.
it was honestly incredible. Like I, sometimes like I love living in Nashville, but sometimes I long for
mm,
Hank to have the same childhood that I had,
yeah.
being close to family and being close to his cousins and,
Mm-hmm.
having access to really just get outside and play and, get lost in the woods and all this stuff. But, um, it obviously it's not for everybody, but it really was the best childhood. I loved it.
Yeah. I go back and forth sometimes about, I grew up in small town Indiana, so not the
Hmm.
same, but, I can relate in some ways. But sometimes I'm like, oh man, it's such a simpler life. And there's like,
Yes.
to simplify life a little bit when it's such a complex world, sounds really nice. But then at the same time, I'm like, I like kind of like the hustle and bustle, and like I feed off of other
Yeah.
people's energy. Like I feel like
Same.
when people are excited and like ready to go and do things, like I'm like, yeah, let's go. So
Yeah.
living in a city, I live more in the burbs now, but like when I lived in a city and stuff, I love that because you could just get out and you kind of fed off the hustle and bustle, the buzz that's going on around you. But
Yeah. And that's kind of like, I grew up in a very small town and especially in high school, I was like the weird kid. So went through like a gothic phase and like, wanting to be Avril Lavigne phase and
there we go.
listen to like metal music and we're
Nice.
all black and, everyone in my town was like, preppy or,
Sure.
you know, into sports or they did all like the horse shows and like the cow shows. So it was
Yeah.
like I was very much a fish out of water and hated it. Like hated living in a small town and just all I ever wanted was to get out. And,
Mm-hmm.
when I graduated college, I immediately moved to Nashville and I've been here ever since. But when I look back, I'm like, yeah, I would love for Hank to have the same childhood and like simpler times and like have land and like have animals and be close to
Yeah.
family. But then my husband and I've talked about it because we've considered moving back to Mississippi. But every
Sure.
time we talk about it, it's like, I don't want Hank to like be like me in high school and look at us and be like, why did you leave Nashville?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we have tried to move back to Mississippi a few times. And right before we got married, we actually did. And it was awful. And we moved right back to Nashville 4 months later.
That's funny.
But yeah, every time after that we've attempted to move back to Mississippi, it's just never worked out. And so we're
Yeah.
like, you know what?
Just meant to
It's
be.
not our time.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we are supposed to move somewhere, it'll happen. And so we're just, trying to stay present and love our
Yeah.
lives in Nashville. And, the older Hank has gotten, it's been a lot more fun. And
Sure.
we love to get out and do fun stuff together. And Nashville's a great city.
What a good perspective. You two, it just sounds like you guys are, I don't know, just taking things as it comes, and not trying to like push an agenda, but like just be present. I like that. And I think it's important and not just be stuck in your ways and stuck in the whatever. It's like, nope, this is where, clearly that didn't work out and here we are. So
Yeah.
till
Yeah.
something else. I like that.
It's been a work in progress. It really has been.
Yeah. Oh.
I've been one that's like, I love to be in control. And so like when I feel completely out of control, like in life, I kind of freak out and I'm like, oh, I got to get control of something.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of learning that, that's not possible.
Yeah.
Like you can't control what's happening around you. You can just kind of react and decide how you're going to react. And so we just kind of take things as they come and make changes when we need to. And it's kind of hard sometimes, but it's working for us. So
Yeah. Well, good for you. That's awesome.
yeah.
So you grew up in small town farm, Mississippi. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what were some of your interests as a child?
Man, I loved horses. So
Sure.
I had some horses. I did some horse shows when I was little.
Nice.
Um, that was my thing. Like, that's all I ever wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to be a horse trainer when I grow up.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and when my mom talks about me when I was little, she was like, "You were fearless. Like you would get on anything and you would ride it, and you were great." And so, that was like one of my biggest interests. But um, I was a cheerleader and I did dance, and so that was
Nice.
fun. But I think one of my favorite things, I am one of 10 grandchildren on my mom's side, and we're all super close in age. And my Nana had this like old VHS like video camera,
Mm-hmm.
and my cousin Steven, who's the oldest, he would always take it and we would make movies together.
Oh, nice.
So in the summers, we would just stay at Nana and Papa's house and we would make movies. And we still have some of those on tape and we watch them and we're like, oh my God,
That's so fun to
what were
have,
we
though. It's
thinking?
such good memories.
Yeah. So that was like one of our big things, especially in the summer. Like that's like something that really stands out to me that we just made movies all the time. It was
Yeah.
so much fun.
It's funny that you say that because I remember when I was little, I had the Home Alone. You remember Home Alone and the little
Oh yeah.
recorder thing where it like popped out?
Oh
I
yeah.
had my own one of those. And now I'm doing podcasts, which is kind of funny. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like I just thought of that whenever you mentioned that. But
Yeah. I think I had one of those too.
yeah, they're so fun. They're so fun. I wish I still had mine. You could like change the voice, speed it up,
Uh-huh.
slow it down, just like in Home Alone. I love that show.
Hmm.
You kind of touched on it. You mentioned it that you wanted to be a horse trainer. One of the questions I like to ask is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did that always stick around, or did you grow out of that and grow and like think about
Yeah.
something else?
So I wanted to work with horses. Like that was just what I wanted to do. And so in high school, when I started thinking more about it, I'd kind of gotten out of horses a little bit just because I was a teenager and,
Yeah.
you just kind of lose interest in those things. But I still loved animals and I loved, even though I wanted to get out of our small town, I loved like living on a farm and like having access to that. And so in high school, I wanted to be a vet. Um,
Okay.
and so funny story, we had cows, we had horses, dogs, cats, everything. And so we were really close with our local vet. She would come to our house all the time. Like my parents were friends with her. And so when I told her when I was like 15, I was like, I think I want to be a vet. She was like, okay, next summer, why don't you come like job shadow me? And I'll just, you can learn some stuff and work for me.
That's so cool.
Well, yeah, we, we went one day just like, I don't know, I don't even remember, but we were there and a dog had been run over and got rushed there for emergency surgery. And she was like, do you want to come watch? And so I walked in and I started watching. And as soon as I saw blood, I was like, I can't do this. And
Yeah,
I
I'm
walked
out.
out. So I'm still like, even, a few years ago when my dog got really sick and we were going to the vet a lot, I was like, I would still love to do this, but I just can't
Yeah.
get past the blood. Like
Mm,
when I think back on like what's the one thing I've always wanted to do, it's been that, but I have a weak stomach. I can't do the blood. So after that, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life.
yeah.
Yeah, I just, I always wish like, why can't I just be like everybody else and want to go to nursing school or be a teacher,
Right. Right.
something like that. So, I still don't really know what I'm doing with my life, but I'm
I
having
feel you.
fun and I'm learning. So,
I feel you. Yep. No, I hear you. So looking into like your middle school, high school days, what kind of student were you?
oh man, I was a good student, like all A's and B's. In middle school, I would like consider myself pretty popular because I was the cheerleader. I you know, end of the year, like in eighth grade, they did like the most popular, cutest, best
Yeah.
dress, like all those like awards, and so I like won some of those.
Just a Southern
Um,
Belle.
yeah, just a Southern Belle. I did pageants too, so
Oh.
there you go. But in high school is where I started like having like different interests. Like I said, I wanted to be Avril Lavigne, and then I like went through like a gothic and like punk rock stage and
Yeah.
listened to all the weird music and had weird friends and went to all these shows and stuff. And so I kind of like I was still a cheerleader though, surprisingly. But I kind of like lost my popularity status. Um,
Sure.
and I was like totally fine with it because I was like, I'm being myself. But like, I don't know, high school is kind of a blur for me. I hated it
Mm,
so much. I got bullied really bad. I switched schools multiple times.
yeah.
And so it's kind of like crazy to look back on, but
Yeah.
I
Middle
got out of
school
there.
was that blur for me. It was kind of,
Yeah.
similar. I didn't switch schools, but I came into middle school, the new kid, and I don't know. I got bullied there, and it's just this big
Hmm.
blur. And same,
Yeah.
I don't really, it's this like dark spot that I don't really talk
Yep.
about. I've
Yep.
realized that if and when I ever go to therapy, that's probably a great starting point
Yes.
of talking about, because it's something I just don't really talk about, and I don't really know how to talk about it. And but
Everyone should go to therapy.
mm,
It like I started going when my husband and I started dating, and it just like changed my life.
yeah,
Like it's incredible because like things like that where you're like I don't really know how to talk about it.
yeah,
It really like triggered some things in me that like I forgot and like helped me like air things out and
yeah,
yeah, highly recommend.
yeah.
Um,
I want to one of these days for sure. I
yeah,
just
it's
haven't
great.
done it. So
But yeah, high school was when I look back, I'm like, what even happened? What was that? Um, and my dad was or is he's a politician, and so he's the judge in our county. And
oh,
so,
cool.
me wearing and small town,
Yep.
he's a politician.
Everybody knows
I
everything. Everybody's
Yep,
business. Everybody's
yep,
got an opinion about everything and everybody's
yep.
business.
And I like, he had this 15-year-old daughter who wore all black and
Yeah.
painted my nails black and was just a total weirdo. And he caught a lot of flack from that. And so like I remember one election, he like someone was spreading rumors that I like was on drugs and like practiced witchcraft,
Oh, jeez.
which was not true. And it was like, looking back now, I'm like, how like I don't understand how people could be so cruel and talk about like a 15-year-old girl like that just to like win one over on her dad.
Yeah.
Um, so there was like a lot of like stress and tension around that. Like I remember one time, he like threw away all my black clothes. And, at the time it like made me really mad. But now like
Hmm.
looking back, I'm like, like there could have been a better way to handle that, but he was just trying to protect me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, high school was not a fun time, but
What do you think spurred the like that change? Or was it just kind of exploring your own life, or was there anything that kind of like
um, I honestly don't know. I have always like I think back and I'm like, what? Like, when did I exactly like find like want something different, want to be
yeah.
different from everybody else? I think it was also in the age of like the internet and like,
Mhm.
Zanga was really big and MySpace was starting to become big and I had access to things outside of small town Mississippi, and kind of seeing like people who were different than me and edgier than me. And I was like, I can be that. Like, I want to be
Yeah.
that.
It's
So
just
I
that
think that kind
age.
of
I
like,
mean, I think everybody kind of goes through a
yeah,
stage of life that's kind of like that, where you're kind of like trying to figure your life
just trying
out
to
and
figure
figure
out who
things
you are.
out. But
Yeah. So I really think that a lot of like the internet kind
yeah.
of sparked me to do that because I was like, oh, like I don't have to fit into this box.
Mm,
I can like be something different. And so I kind of explored all of that. And it's funny. I was talking to a friend the other day, and we are listening to like Jimmy Eat World or something. I was like, you know what? I will always and forever be like an emo kid. Like this music, like this kind of music is what like helped me through so much in like high school and college, and it still like brings so many like nostalgic feelings. I'm like, it'll always be my favorite.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I never really got into that. I don't. It was never really my jam. I don't know. I uh I was all over the place. I feel like with
Yeah.
my music interests and that kind of thing, but I was just trying to fit in. I think most of the time, I was just
Yeah.
chasing the popular thing to, if it was whatever the popular song was or popular music or whatever it was. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think that's like one of my big things that came from my middle school years was this drive to fit in and
Mm-hmm.
to find acceptance, and it spilled over into my in my life. I think it kind of runs in the family a little bit of this like people pleasing, idea.
Yeah.
But then it just manifests even and kind of intensifies whenever you're going through a feeling like the outsider, bullied, not really fit in, not really accepted. And then, yeah, it's weird.
And
It's an
I can
interesting
relate
concept.
to that a lot because when I was in, I think, like I said, I switched schools a lot. I think I was in like ninth grade or maybe 10th grade. And for some reason, I was like, I want to go to private school. And so my parents were like, okay. And they pulled me out of public school, put me in private school. And it was very small. There were like 20 people in my class.
Yeah.
Um, and everyone was kind of the same. Like everyone was either like farmer or like a jock or like really preppy.
Yeah.
And I, I mean, I already have like really dark hair, but I like dyed my hair black and like was still kind of weird. And I got picked on really bad. And so I decided, I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And like went out and like bought all new clothes, like
Mm-hmm.
was like changed my style, was like super preppy and trying to fit in. And, it just didn't serve me very well
Yeah. I
trying
think
to
I've
fit
said
into
this
that
before
box.
on
So,
the podcast, but one of the moments for me was, I think it was like seventh grade, and I wore a turtleneck to school.
hmm
And I didn't do that ever again. I don't know if I've worn a turtleneck since, to be completely honest.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just, that was like, I went to the same school from like first grade through sixth grade, so like
hmm
everybody knew me, you just fit, everybody knew everybody, and you just like, you were accepted. You didn't know any different, especially in elementary school. You're like, oh, this is just life, And then I went to
Yeah.
somewhere new. It was just kind of cliquey and small town and whatever. And boy, that wasn't the what you wore. And I quickly figured that out.
Yeah.
It was funny, but that's one that sticks out to me, which is funny. I remember like where I was, like in the school when I was just like, nope, not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I remember where I was when, like, I was like, that's the last straw. I got to do something about this. We're at a football game, and like some of the senior girls were like standing behind me, and I was a cheerleader. Again, they're standing behind me and they're talking about my hair and like how gothic I was and how weird I was. And I was like, okay, I can
yeah,
change. I guess
yeah,
I'll like conform. Um, but yeah, that was like the big, I feel like that was kind of the beginning. Like when I switched schools there, that's kind of where I started losing like who I was and like still
mm,
trying to figure it out and like why am I not being accepted? Like why
yeah,
don't I really have any friends?
yeah,
And kind of this back and forth. And that's when I went to public school, private school, back to public school. Then I homeschooled. Then I went back to private school.
yeah.
So it was
Wow,
like
lots
ping
of
ponging back
changes.
and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Do
was, I asked my mom about it. I'm like, why did you let me do that? And she was like, I couldn't figure you out. Like,
mm,
I wanted you to be happy and you didn't seem happy anywhere. So I was just willing to do whatever it took to like try to make you happy, like
yeah,
as far as school went. And I mean, she says now, she's like, now I probably would have done things different. But at the time, she was like, you're my first kid. Like, you're the guinea pig. I was trying to
yeah,
figure out
sure.
like how to raise my child. And it was just kind of a hard time. And I was also a very difficult teenager. So
Mm.
yeah.
Do you feel? I know you mentioned like you kind of lost who you were, or, like couldn't figure that out. Do you feel like you figured that out now? Is that something you like
Yeah.
continually explore? Like I say this, I'm asking curiosity, like because of my own self. Like I mentioned some of those things and changing and kind of always adapting to other people, and I don't like. I feel like I'm still trying to figure out exactly who I am, and authenticity and being genuine is something that I really strive to be my four.
Yeah.
Um, but but yeah, I don't know. It's like it's just hard sometimes because I have that urge to like please people and fit in and to do do. But then at the same time, I'm like that rebel without a cause sometimes, where I'm like, nope, you told me to do that, I'm gonna do the opposite. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like weird. I don't know. It's like I'm constantly fighting this battle, and I'm just curious if you felt like you found
Yeah.
that. Or
So I feel like, I mean, obviously, like as we grow and like get older, like we change. And I feel like throughout my life, there are like little pockets of my life where I feel like I had it figured out. And then I feel like every time you figure something out, it's like something changes. And you're like,
yeah,
whoop.
Like,
got to do it all over again. So I
yep.
have like pockets of my life where it's like, yeah, I kind of had it together then and then and then. But honestly, like I feel like now, present day, I feel like I'm more myself and more genuine and authentic, and happier than I think I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey. So I mean, I've always like kind of struggled with some depression and anxiety, which,
Mm-hmm.
looking back now, like I can see all those like times in my teenage years that like I would lay in bed crying all day and my mom's like, why don't you get up and go to school? And now like looking back, I'm like, I can pinpoint it and be like, oh, I was just severely depressed.
Yeah, right.
Um,
I know.
yeah. And
I'm
it's
right there
like,
with you. Those
and I've
things.
asked my mom, I'm like, why didn't you do anything? She's like, because no one talked about it. She's like, I didn't know what that was.
Well,
So
and I
it
was
was actually
classic
like,
guy. Like I didn't tell anybody. So like I'd come
yeah,
home like middle school. I'd beat my mom home, or she'd have something going on, or she wasn't there, or whatever. I'd cry in my bedroom, like.
yeah, same. And it like, and I'm not much of like an emotional person. Like, talk about like childhood wounds, but my mom, she like growing up, I never cried. Like when my
Mm,
dog died, I didn't cry. When my horse died, I didn't cry. Like I was just very like stoic all the time. And my mom, like, she's a very emotional person. And so like when our horse died, she's sobbing. She's like, why aren't you crying? She's like, are you heartless? So it was kind of this like running joke when I was growing up that like I was heartless because I never cried. And now looking back, I'm like, that actually kind of hurt me a little bit
yeah.
because I'm not heartless. And now especially like figuring out my personality type, I'm like, I'm a slow processor.
Mm,
Like it can take me like days to process something to like feel the emotion behind it. And so, there are times in high school where like something would happen at school or like someone would be mean to me or like something from years ago would like come back, but I would never talk about it until it like all built up and it like reached this point where I just couldn't hold it anymore.
yeah.
And I would lose my mind over something simple like
Yeah.
not being able to find my shoes.
Yeah.
And so like looking back now, I'm like, oh, I can pinpoint that and I can tell you exactly what that was.
Sure.
But after I had Hank, I mean, postpartum depression and anxiety is becoming like people are talking about it more, which I'm so
Mm-hmm.
thankful for. And I always wondered, I'm like, since I already struggle with anxiety and depression, I can like pinpoint it and know when it's like affecting me.
Yeah.
I wonder how I'm going to handle like postpartum.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to have depression? Like, what's this going to be like? So like the first week after Hank was born, I mean, they call it the baby blues, and it was awful. Like I just cried, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like I can't like
Yeah.
control my emotions. But then like slowly over the past 2 years, like now that I'm out of it, like I realize like how badly I suffered from it.
Sure.
And it just I was so lonely. I was so insecure. Like even some of my best friends, who live in Nashville, like I like thought they hated me. Like wouldn't reach out to them, but I would see them on Instagram like hanging out with people. I'm like, well, why
Yeah.
why don't they ever ask me to hang out?
Classic, right?
And yeah, and so now I think back, I'm like, oh, probably because I never asked them to hang out.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
so it's just like this really, really lonely time, and I was very depressed. Struggled with like some really dark thoughts and
Yeah.
all this stuff, and so this past like in August, so I like breastfed Hank, and in August I was like, I'm done with this.
Mm-hmm.
And once I stopped that, and like 2 weeks later, I like woke up one morning and I was like, I actually like I feel so much lighter and I feel happy and like
Yeah.
I feel like myself. And so like I said, now that I'm out of it, I can look back. I'm like, I had awful postpartum depression. I just didn't know how to like pinpoint it.
Sure.
And like my husband knew, like I was very open with him. Like I would just tell him like I'm really depressed today. And so like he was the one person that I was like super open with about it. But it was just this weird thing. Like I didn't know what to do about it. Like you don't know who to
Yeah.
turn to, like, or how to talk about it because people don't.
Well, it's hard to
So yeah,
express a
like,
feeling that you
yeah.
don't have words for, you know?
And and I think the only like blessing out of my entire life is like knowing that I struggled with it already. Like I knew when I had it and I knew that it would pass.
Yeah.
So I never like, I don't know, like I never just sat there like, I don't know what's happening. Like I knew what was happening and I knew that it would be over eventually because I would have like low moments and then like really high moments.
Yeah.
So I think that like helped me in like kind of coping, because that's what I would do. I would just cope, like do what I
Sure.
could to like try to make it better. But now like that wasn't the smartest thing. I probably should have been in therapy, and I probably should have like sought out medication or something to kind of help me
Mm-hmm.
level out my mood. But back to your question about like you know like finding myself, like I feel like the past like month and a half like has been the like most like profound couple months in my entire life where I'm like truly finding my identity and finding like what I stand for and like who I am and like what I want to
Mm.
do and like my dreams and aspirations. And so it's been like a really cool, interesting past few months. And I have like a few new friends from doing the Monate business, and this girl who doesn't even know me that well. We've hung out a couple times, but she met me for coffee one time. Then she saw me at an event, and then she saw me like a few weeks later, and she looked at me and she was like, "You're different." She was like, "I can
Mm.
just like feel the confidence like coming off of you." And I was like, "Yeah." It's
That's
like, and you're
awesome.
like you're now like part of my story that like helped me like step up to this, because I feel like I've just been like making these excuses for my life and like just kind of
Mm-hmm.
wallowing in like I want more out of life. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And she's one of the people who like looked at me. She was like, "You're capable of so much. Like, you have the potential to do so many amazing things. You just have to decide to do it and step into it." And
Yeah.
so that's kind of like the moment that things started changing for me. And like I said, like I finally feel like I'm like stepping into my potential and stepping into who I'm supposed to be.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Gabby, that's so cool. That's so awesome. And I can tell you, I mean, it sounds like you've even made strides since the last time I saw you. But I
Oh
was
my
thinking
gosh.
about whenever, because we worked the event. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've heard people from the International Justice Mission event that I worked. Thomas More. Who else? I had somebody else on.
Lauren, did you have Lauren
Yeah,
on?
Lauren. I've had a couple other people too, but or at least one other one. I can't think of who it was now. But anyway, yeah. So you worked there. You were working that event as well, and I was just thinking back to the first time I met you. As an intern at Invisible Children, and I feel
As a
like
little baby.
yeah, and so insecure. Just kind of finding your way. I feel like that best describes you, but I don't know. I was just impressed. I was impressed to see how much growth you had like
Yeah.
had taken place since Invisible Children, and then to that event, and it's cool to see like continually growing and developing and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I've man, I feel the same way. Like we were both just little babies back at Invisible Children, and maybe at different places in life. But man, I've matured and grown up so much, and
Yeah.
from high school to college to Invisible Children to today, and still a work in progress. Got a lot of way, long way to go. Always trying to figure things out, and always trying to be the best version of myself. But
I
I
know
think
it's
that's just
crazy.
part of life, and yeah, it is. I think some of it's maturity, just kind of
Yeah.
life experience and knowing and understanding, but some of it's hard work, that we've put in together, put in individually, is just to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And that's ultimately, I think, what everybody wants. And it's interesting to hear, because you and I aren't alone, like so many people
Yeah.
go through the same things. And it's what I love about this podcast in so many ways, is just being able to share and to see like, oh, other people go through stuff too, and
Yeah.
other people are struggling and continually trying to grow and to do that as well, and I'm not alone. And I don't know, I think it's important to see and to see examples. If we don't know that it's possible, what's possible, it's hard to
Hmm.
know like where we're going, and what to shoot for and
Exactly.
aim for.
Yeah, that IJM event, that was so much fun. But that kind of goes back to my story about dealing with postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Like that summer, I was just so like it was so dark, and that was actually one of the times I was like, I think we need to move back to Mississippi.
Mm.
Like, I need a break, because I mean, my dad and stepmom live in Nashville, but I mean, they're so busy. They have their own businesses, and
Yeah.
I was so isolated. It was like hard for me to reach out to people. And so
Mm-hmm.
I told my husband, I was like, I think we need to move back to Mississippi. Like, I need a break. Like, I've been home full time
Yeah.
for almost a year. And like, it's so like, staying home now is so great. I love it so much. But like back then it was like, I have an infant and like, you know, when was the last time I showered? Like, wow, I'm still wearing the same leggings that I was wearing 3 days ago. Like, it just became like,
Yeah.
and I like feel kind of embarrassed saying that now, but it became this point where I was like, I didn't know how to take care of myself anymore.
No, I don't think you should be embarrassed about that. I like.
But I mean, it's real life, and like so many moms go through it, like so many people
Yeah.
go through it. And so that's one of the things, like I try to be like just super authentic with like my story and what I've been through. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that summer was just so hard, and I was like, I need help. I think we need to move back. Couldn't find jobs. Like we're looking at houses, like nothing was working out. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like,
Yeah.
because we were also like kind of struggling a little bit financially, and I was like, I can't afford to go back to work in Nashville because daycare is so expensive.
Right.
Um, but I was like, our only option is to move back, have my mom watch Hank, and I can go back to work and we can kind of get out of this like financial hole that we're in. None of that worked out. Applied for jobs that we were like well overqualified for, couldn't get anything. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, clearly there's something else in the works here, but I don't know what it is. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do. And then Susanna called me.
Mm.
And she was like, hey, like, I saw that you were looking for like some work from home stuff. Like, do you have the capacity to help with this? She was like, these are the things that I'm needing help with. And in my head, I was like, no. But then in my heart, I was like, I need this. And I was like, yeah, I
Yeah.
can do that. And so she's like, okay, let me like look some things over and like, I'll get back to you. And then she called me one day. She's like, okay, this is what I need help with. This is how many hours I need. This is how much we can pay you.
Yep.
Can you do it? And I was so insecure. And like, even though the job that she was asking for was work that I had done before,
Yeah.
like Susanna and I've worked many events before. So like, I knew how to work with her and I knew what to do, but my insecurity and like my like
I,
mom brain of
I
like just
get it. I don't. I
staying
had
home
this.
with a baby for a year, it was like,
Yeah.
I was like, this is all I know how to do is like change diapers and, get him to sleep and play with him. But in my heart, I was like, I know I need to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very scared to step into it and like to step into something that feels so different right now, but I know I need to do it. And so I was just like, without even thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then I hung up the phone and I talked to my husband. I was like, I don't know what I just did. And he just laughed. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he said, listen, Susanna wouldn't have called you if she didn't believe in you.
That's right.
I was like, she knows your potential and she knows like what you can do and that you're really good at what you do. And so she would not have asked you if she didn't believe in you. I was like, okay. So literally the entire like time I'm working towards this event. So I started in like end of July. The entire time, like every time I got insecure, I was like, Susanna would not have asked me to do this if she didn't believe in me. And so that's like what got me through to the event. And, that event just totally gave me life, like
Oh
gave me
yeah.
like new perspective and like new meaning. And it was like, it kind of like gave me the energy boost I needed to get through like the next few months to like where I am now.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah, it was
interesting
crazy.
because I feel like you had the dark moment before going to the event,
Hmm.
and I feel like I was just like a robot before I went into the event, and
Yeah.
it was just this like going through life and going through the motions, and then the event was more for me. It was like open my eyes to what I'm capable of, I guess,
Hmm.
and like the joys and like, man, I love it. Like I love events. I love that kind of
Yeah, me too.
stuff. Like it's my jam, and my brain operates in different wavelengths sometimes when I get into those. Like I'm like, let's go. Maybe sometimes too much, but then I came back and it was like it was an eye-opening experience for me at the event, and then coming back it was like the veil was pulled off my eyes, and I was like, oh, what am I doing, and not in like a bad way. Like I liked what I was doing, but I didn't have any, I don't know, I was just kind of going through the motions, and
Yeah.
um,
You knew that you wanted more
I knew that I wanted more, and
and that
I
you were
went too
capable of
hard for
more.
it when I came back, to be completely
Yeah.
honest. And I don't know, I was in a really bad spot. That was the worst.
Yeah.
That was the worst for me. Anxiety attacks
Mm.
and just like not knowing where I was going in life. And man, yeah, I think there's just a bunch of different things. I started, just trying to make better decisions, like health wise. And, I don't know, I made some big changes and eventually kind of pulled myself out of that, but over the next several months. But there were so many days that I was sitting there, my wife would come home and I'd just be like, I don't know what's wrong. I have no idea what's wrong, but something's not right. And I can't tell you what's wrong. I don't have no idea. But something's not right. And I don't know. I'm post that now, but it's still trying to figure that out. And CrazyFaceUno has been part of this, it's been this like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And I'm not going to lie, there's some days that are better than others. There's just, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I'm trying and
none of us do.
Yeah, no, right? Yeah. It's like just faking it till I make it. And I'm having fun and doing this podcast and trying to put together a business plan for future things. And,
that's awesome.
But goodness, like, life's crazy. And I think it's just continually going back to the drawing board, but never giving up on yourself, and checking in, going like, okay, are we good? Where are we at? Like being realistic, but also like pushing yourself a little bit and understanding that you've got more to give. And I don't know.
That's one of the things that I've been learning the past few months, especially since like joining this new business and, like being like extremely scared of it and extremely scared to jump in. And my mentor, she is always like, you want change, right? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, well, nothing's going to change if you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
She's like, you have to be active to make change. And
exactly.
She was like, and things are going to seem really hard and scary, but they're only hard and scary if you say that. So like every time I say something like, I'm not good at this, she's like, well, yeah, you're not if you say that. And so like the past few months have just been like a total mindset shift for me to where it's like when you asked me to do this podcast, I was like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that. That's so scary. And then I just started thinking about it and I like talked to my friend about it. She was like, do it. And I was like, I'm scared of it. She was like, so? She's like, you can do hard and scary things. I was like, you're right. So it's just been like, I don't know. And same for you. Like you can do hard and scary things.
Yeah.
You're never going to see like what you can do if we don't like do the hard work to get there.
It's true. It's so true.
So I think like, it's so important that, you started this podcast and you are sharing different people's stories because like, there are going to be people who relate to me and there are going to be people who relate to like your other guests. And I don't know. I'm all about like being authentic, especially in like the age of social media. Because I know I see people's houses. I'm like, you have 6 kids and your house looks perfect and you make dinner every night and like you look perfect. And like, how do you find time to work out and clean your house and like take care of your kids? And, we always like compare ourselves. And, that's like something I'm trying to do like with my own personal social media. Like yesterday I posted like an Instagram story of my bedroom and it was literally like all of my clean clothes like on the floor. Yeah. Like it was just like piles and piles of clean clothes. Yeah. And it's like, well, here's the reality of it. Like,
right.
My house is never like picked up. Like I have 2 dogs and a baby and like no time and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's really important that like one, like real stories are being shared like on your podcast.
Exactly.
2, that like we're like authentic and genuine in our everyday lives and like letting people know that it's okay to be a mess. Like we're all a mess. We're all figuring it out.
We all are. Exactly.
Yeah.
And like you said it like, we're all figuring it out. Nobody knows what we're doing. And I've said that so many times where it's like so many different times in my life. I used to think back in college days, like I was like 23. That was like a number, this age that I was like, when I reach 23, everything's going to be figured out, like I like looked at people that were 23 and I was like,
I said the same thing.
They've graduated, they've got jobs, they've got money, they've got all this stuff, like blah, 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 like 23. Mm-hmm. And then I reached 23 and I was like, what in the hell is happening? Like it was honestly,
why don't I have money?
Yeah. Oh, right. Still working at Invisible Children. No. And I was just like, 23 was this odd
Mm-hmm.
number. I thought I'd be married. I thought I'd have, be on my way to having kids. Like I had all these like things and thoughts and ideas and whatever. And boy, was I wrong, and I don't know. It was like that was the harder than probably, that was a harder age for me to accept than anything. Because I realized like, man, I don't know what's going on. And I still thought, and the mindset was still the same, where it was like, oh, like I'm the oddball out. I was doing great things. I was doing things I loved. I was around people that I loved, at Invisible Children and whatnot. But man, 23 wasn't what I thought it was going to be when I was like 20, And then, there's been other age group, like at 30, whatever reason, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be married by 30. And I did accomplish that one. But, yeah, I don't know. It was just like one of those things where 30 was this big number. And I just realized, man, how many times, think about this. As Hank gets older, he's going to look at you, his mom, and look at your husband, his dad, and think that you guys have it all figured out. Because we did. Yeah. We really did. Think about it. We thought our parents had it all figured out, and, like life was fine. And even if you knew it wasn't, like you still thought it was, or they had it good, or they had it better, or whatever it was. And that they knew what was happening, knew what was going on. And man, we wake up every day, whether you have a job, you're like going 100 mile an hour, or you're slow and whatever, it's still this like, I have no idea what's happening. And we get to make those choices and live in that present moment every single day. And it's crazy to think about. And I think that that's one of the mindsets that shifts over time as we get older. That when we're in high school and when we're in elementary school, junior high, college, whatever it is, you think that eventually you're going to understand, you're going to know, and you're going to have things figured out. And that's like this dream or this like goal that you're going to achieve. And the secret is that that's never going to happen.
Nope.
And it's just continually, maybe we process information differently or better or faster because of life experiences, but you're never going to have things figured out. It's a constant, the target is constantly changing, and that can't be your goal.
Yeah. I know. I remember like growing up and like, okay, when I'm 16, like I'll be able to drive, and like, 21 and, 23, I graduate from college and I'm going to do big things with my life. And like, I graduated from college, moved to Nashville, started working for a nonprofit. It was a homeless shelter. So like, I wasn't making the big bucks.
No.
And, my time, like moving to Nashville to like when I got married was like, it was crazy. And like, I was so young. And sometimes I look back, I'm like, what were you doing? But they really were like some like really happy moments in my life. Like I had great friends, like we did cool stuff together. Like it was a really great time. But I think, especially coming from a small town, like I had friends getting married like right out of high school.
Yeah.
Or like,
same.
I remember one girl dropped out of high school to get married.
Whoa.
And so like, I grew up in like the Southern Baptist like church culture. And
Right.
So in my head, it was like, if I'm not married before I'm 25, then I'm failing somehow.
Yeah.
If I'm not married and having kids, then I'm failing.
Yeah.
And so that was like stuck in my head. I was like, I've got to get married. I've got to get married. I've got to get married. And then I really think that Invisible Children changed that for me, because I saw all these amazing people who are older than me. And I was like, they're like living their best lives, and they're not married yet. And I was like, okay, like there's something more to life than like just, settling down and being like a homemaker and like a wife and a mom and all this stuff. I was like, there are more things I can be doing. And so it kind of like shifted my mind a little bit. And so then by the time I reached 25, I was like, okay, like it's time to slow it down. I was like, I think I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because like, even though like after Invisible Children, I like mindset shift where I was like, okay, I'm not going to like focus on marriage so much. I still like deep down, it was like a desire I wanted, like I'm sure we all do. But then at the same time, I was telling people like, I'm never going to get married, because I'm like, I'm not a super warm person sometimes. And like, I don't really like to get close to people.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it would just like be easier for me if I just didn't get married. If I just like, lived alone, like had some girlfriends, like whatever. Like I
Yeah.
don't really care about getting married. But like deep down I was like, I know I want that.
Yeah.
So like when I met my husband, we had known each other for a few years, and we like reconnected like a few months after I turned 25. And, hearing him tell the story now, he was like, I was all in. Like from the moment I met you, I was all in. He was like, but you just like wouldn't have it. And I was like, that's true. So we
That's
like
funny.
reconnected shortly after I turned 25, and, you know, a lot of hard work on his end, but, 2 months later we were dating, and like 4 months later we were engaged, and 6 months later we were married. Like happened really fast, but I
Yeah.
still, you know, 25, I was like, maybe I'll have it figured out by 25. And I was like, well, maybe when I get married, like I'll have it figured out. Like
Right.
thinking that that would like change something. And then I was like, okay, I'm still like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, well, maybe when I become a mom, I'll have it figured out. Cause like all moms have it figured out. They have the answers to everything. And like become a mom, I'm like, oh my God, like they're letting me leave the hospital with this child.
Yeah.
Like that was
I've
the
heard that
weirdest
a
moment. I
lot.
was like,
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to do this. Like, what am I doing? Um, and so like, I've had those moments too where it's like, like when I reach this certain like point or this milestone, I'll have it figured out. And like, that's like been another one of the things I've learned like the past few months is like, you know, I'm never going to have it figured out. As soon as I have it
Mm-mm.
figured out, something is going to change and I'm going
Yeah.
to have to figure it out again.
The target
And so
moves.
just
Yeah.
like figuring out how to like adapt to things and like, really grow with like the situations that are happening around me, and,
Mm-hmm.
trying not to like squeeze all the like life out of things because I want to control it. Like just kind of
Right.
letting things flow. And so, I'll be 30 in January, and for so long I thought I would like dread that, like turning 30, because I've
Yeah.
always like had this fear of getting older, but I'm like so excited for it.
Yeah. Well,
Because I'm
welcome
like,
to the
I
30s Club.
finally, thank you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, even though we'll never have it figured out, I'm like, I feel like I have such a handle on how my life is right now, and like I
Mm-hmm.
really love it, and I like am really loving like where life is taking me. And so like, starting a new decade next like January 2nd, I'm like, I'm ready for it. Like I'm ready to like turn over a new leaf and be like, okay, here we go into my 30s and like starting it off on the right foot. So
Yeah. Good for you. That's awesome.
yeah, thank you.
Well, as we kind of talking about the future and kind of like looking into it, I mean, you just kind of mentioned it, but are there any other things you're looking forward to most about the future? And
Um, I'm like, I don't know, like I'm trying not to set up huge expectations for myself. Like I'm the worst at like setting up expectations. Like even something as simple as like last year when Jeff and Hank and I went to a Christmas tree farm to get our Christmas tree. Like in my head, I was like, this is how it's going to go. These are the photos we're going to take. It's going to be great. And,
man, I
I
feel
set up these
that.
expectations, and then it doesn't go as planned. And
And
then
then
I
you're
get
bummed.
disappointed and
Yeah.
upset. Yeah.
I've
So
been saying this for a while that expectations lead to disappointment.
yes. So I'm learning to like not set expectations for myself. And so
Yeah.
like some of the biggest things I'm looking forward to in the future are like, um, you know, having a happy and healthy family, like continuing to strive, to keep my family healthy and to like be happy together and to do fun things together.
Yeah.
And, like some bigger things like searching for like financial freedom and like more time for my family.
Mm.
Which is why I have like so many side hustles going on. Like I'm
Right.
learning that
But
like I
those
don't
two
have to
things,
do
yeah, because
one
those two
thing.
things clash a lot of times. Like more time
Yeah.
with your
Like,
family and financial freedom.
yep.
I like
It's
want
like you
that
have
as
to
well,
work to
but I
make
don't know
money, but if
how.
I'm
Yeah.
not home, then I can't spend time with my family. So that's like one of the big things my husband and I are working on is like, financial freedom, spend more time together, do more fun things together. Um, but yeah, like just kind of looking forward to those things. And, you know, maybe having another kid in the next
Woo!
couple years, which is
Cool.
like also something I never wanted kids either.
Yeah.
And so like when we got pregnant with Hank, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Um, and after Hank was born, I was like, I'm not doing this ever again.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, I need a baby.
Yeah.
So, I
That's
don't know. We'll
cool.
see. Like, I want Hank to have a sibling, whether that's
Yeah.
biological or adoption.
Yep.
We don't know yet. So yeah, maybe
Cool.
having another kid, like, just setting up like really tangible
Yeah.
expectations for
They're not
us.
like
Like,
they're not like benchmark things necessarily, but they're like
Yeah.
they're life events. And
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. My wife and I have been trying to kind of think through some of those different things too. You know, we signed up for this like vacation package thing where it's like, hey, we're investing into this, and this will. I mean, we're both think about money, so it's like we want to make the most of it, and we want to be able to go on vacations and spend time with each other and have these things that we get to like look back and make memories, you know, and not just like we're so the classic thing is like we'll just sit at home, you know, and like you just like let
Yep.
the day go by and you're like, dang it. And I'm bad about that just on my regular weekdays, and I don't know what it is. I'm still figuring that out. But yeah, just creating these like life event things where you're like, man, let's create memories together. Like let's not waste this time. And not that it's a waste, but you know what I mean? Like let's not just like let it
Yeah.
pass us by, but let's make the most of it without exhausting ourselves. And
And I mean, it can feel like a waste because, like, I look back at the past 2 years and I'm like, I literally feel like I don't remember anything
yeah,
significant because I was, like, struggling with my mental health. And so,
yeah,
it was hard for me to get out of the house, especially with an infant. And then, like, you know, toddlers are just, they're a little wild sometimes. So it's like, it was really hard for me to get out of the house. So I would just sit at home all day and like
yeah,
watch Netflix. And then,
yep,
Jeff would get home and he's tired and he wants to spend time with Hank before Hank goes to bed. So there's like, we're not getting out of the house in the
yeah,
evening. And then also like, struggling a little financially. So it's like,
yep,
well, we probably shouldn't go out to eat. Let's just stay
right,
home. And I mean, it literally like, I don't have any like real significant moments that have happened the past 2 years because we've just stayed at home and we've kind of just like stayed in our bubble and like been stuck in our
yeah,
heads. And I hate to admit it, but I think we're all guilty of it.
oh yeah, for
Staying
sure,
on our phones too much
yep,
too, like just
yep,
sitting there like scrolling through whatever. And sometimes I'd look at Jeff and be like, what are you looking at? And he's like, guitars. What are you looking at? And I'm like, I don't know, Instagram. And so it's just
I don't know,
like,
I've switched through about 4 different things in the last 3 minutes, so
yeah, it's
yeah,
just like, and that's like, I mean, I guess that's another one of our like future goals. Do you remember Katie Hughes or
yeah,
Katie Randall?
yep,
Yeah. So we're still like best friends.
nice,
She's like one of my best girls. We actually went to see her 2 weekends ago in South
cool,
Dakota. And so she's married and has a 1 year old. And, while we were there, I just noticed, I was like, they're not on their phones.
mm,
Like when Ellis is awake, they are not on their phones. Like I don't remember seeing Katie on her phone. And so when we got back home, I mentioned it to her and I was like, hey, like, just so you know, I noticed and you're doing a really good job
yeah,
about not staying on your phone. And it's really encouraged me to make a change. And she was like, I've been trying to be really intentional. I'm really happy that you noticed that. Like, it makes me feel like, it gave me the validation I needed to, continue doing what I'm doing because like, I know it's good for my family. And
yeah,
so like Jeff and I talked about it. I was like, when Hank's awake, like let's just put our phones away. Like let's
yeah,
play with him. Like let's stop like making our brains mush and looking at social media or online shopping or whatever. And let's like spend time with our son. And so
yeah,
it's been really like, we're a work in progress, but the past 2 weeks, like putting our phones away has been really helpful. And that, I mean, that's another thing for our future expectations or goals that we have is just to like not rely on our phones as much and to create entertainment and like fun with each other instead of just like looking at what other people are doing and be like, man, I wish I could travel to Paris.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
So that's another thing that we're really trying to work on.
Well, and part of what my future or kind of what I've been looking at with Crazy Face Uno is like, I truly, truly believe that everyone has a story and everybody's story matters. And if we're going to be on our phones, technology isn't going anywhere, right? This is going to be a struggle, a battle the rest of our lives, phones and technology and this, and it's like, well, I might as well put positive storytelling and at least allow people to watch videos, of people's story and telling people's story and the same kind of dialogue interaction and whatever that is of using that and kind of pushing that as like, hey, if you're going to be on your phone, at least it's something that's like positive and, I think that connects people and in a technology way. We're really bad about in society nowadays. And I don't know that it's going to get better. Hopefully it does. But we're really bad about just connecting with people I mentioned in the beginning, like I kind of hate talking on the phone, which is kind of funny because we're talking on the phone through a podcast, but
I don't like talking on the phone either,
it
but
like stresses me out. It gives me anxiety. I like schedule phone calls because I'm like, I
yeah.
gotta like work myself up for it, which is so dumb. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's like, it's funny. And so it's like, I don't know, just a way to connect with people around the world and around the country and, whatever that looks like. So it's kind of something we're working towards, I guess. We'll
And
see.
I love that. Like, that's something I've tried to do too. Like, I mean, I do photography and then like working with Monet, like I have to have access to my
Yeah.
social media. So like that's how I market myself.
Yeah.
And it's been really hard for me because it's like there's some days where I'm like I just want to delete everything, but it's like
Same.
but I need those things to like make money.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the things that I've been trying to like be better about when I post something on Instagram. I'm like, if I'm gonna post something, I want it to be like helpful for someone else.
Yeah.
Whether that's just like, here I am, like I haven't showered in 2 days and look at my hair, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing great. Or just like, sharing my thoughts around like motherhood and mental health and like, or marriage or friendships, like just really trying to like put positive things out there. So like the people who are like just scrolling on their phones all day, like at least they can see something that could possibly encourage them.
Exactly.
But also like, it's so weird because like I've always loved music. Like I've always been like a very musical person and loved listening to music. But the past like 6 months or so, like I'm like, what kind of music do I like? I don't even remember because all I listen to is podcast.
Yeah.
And so like some of it's like fun stuff. Like I love like true crime, like My Favorite Murder, like all that stuff. But I really love listening to people's stories.
Yeah.
Like that has become my thing because it makes me feel like heard and seen, like when I hear a story that I can really connect with. So what you're doing is good work. I love it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. And you get to be a part of it by doing this podcast with me. So start to close things out here. I got maybe 2 more questions and then we'll kind of close things out. Have you ever thought about your legacy?
Oh man. Yeah, like here recently.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to my friend's podcast the other day, and she was saying that she was thinking about her legacy. Just like, what do I want to leave behind? Like, what do I want to leave behind that people like can remember me by, and my kids can remember me by? And she's doing such an incredible job because like what she's doing, like her influences in me has become like part of my story. So like her name comes up in my story. So after I listened to that, this was probably like 2 weeks ago, I listened to that and I was like, what is my legacy? Like, what do I want my legacy to be? I don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't
still, like,
know that you'll ever
out.
really know. I think it's like always a work in progress, but I think it's a really interesting question just because it's like I remember when I was in college, it's one of the reasons that I like kind of came up in my head. We did like what do you want on your epitaph, like on your tombstone, like what do you want people to, like your legacy, like what do you want in college? Like that was like a woof. That was a deep, thoughtful question. I'm like, I don't know, like I have no idea. And it's kind of stuck with me, like I still think about it, but I don't know either. Like that's the thing. Like I'm asking a question that I could spout out some information, but I don't know if I really have it nailed down. And I don't know if anybody ever really does. I just think it's interesting to like hear what people's thoughts are.
So I actually last year I had a close friend pass away, and then also a friend this year pass away. And the thing that I have like noticed with their passing is that the thing that people talk about isn't like, I mean, I guess this is like part of their legacy, but it's not like they did such and such and such and such. It's like, wow, they were a really incredible person. Like every time like they walked into a room, they made you feel like loved and welcomed and seen. And like, they were really good at like, they gave really good hugs. They were really funny. Like it's more about like the contents of their character that like leaves the biggest mark on people. And so I think that's probably one of the things that like I would want people to remember me by is like, I'm so hard on myself. I'm my toughest critic. Like I could say like negative things about myself all day long, but
same girl.
I'm trying to like be more positive about myself. And so like, but I want people to remember me by like being a good friend, like holding space for people and like being there. Like I've had some friends the past few months go through some stuff, and they're like, "You're the first person I called because I knew that you would just listen and you wouldn't try to give me advice and just like talk to me." So I'm like, okay, like maybe that's like part of my legacy. It's like I want to be the person that like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like I'm always here. Like my friends, like I would do anything for my like close group of friends.
Yeah.
And so I want, I think that's probably what I'd want my legacy to be, and people to remember me by just like who I am as a human, and not like maybe things that I've done, but just remember the characteristics that I carry.
I love it. One last question, and then we'll close things out. We got just under 5 minutes here left before we got to stop. Looking back on your life, what advice would you tell little Gabby?
Oh my gosh. I'd probably tell her that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so simple, but, there were some tough moments in my life where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this, or, so I think just like that constant reminder that it's always going to be okay. Like,
yeah,
things are going to work out. And I think, that's probably what I'd tell myself. Yeah.
Good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Gabby, tell people how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in Monat products.
Monat. I know. I've heard people pronounce it all kinds of different ways.
I wrote it down and like tried to make a little cue for myself, and I still messed it up. So.
Yeah. So it stands for modern nature. So like Monat. Yeah.
Got it.
But I hear all kinds of different pronunciations. Yeah. So.
Or photography as well, if they're interested in photography.
Yeah. Yeah. Best way is through my Instagram.
Okay.
My Instagram handle is GBBYWTSN. So Gabby Watson with no vowels.
Nice.
So yeah, this is the best way to get in touch with me. I'm like, like I said, I hate to admit it, I'm on Instagram a lot because that's where I do most of my work. But
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I will make sure we have that in the post and hopefully get some traffic going your way.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on. It was really fun.
Yeah, this was fun.
Awesome.
It wasn't scary at all.
I know, right? See, I told you. I get those like anxious nervousness, and then you get going and it's just two friends talking. So
yeah, fun. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to close this out here.
Cool.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening. Really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show today, visit us on Facebook and Instagram. You can like and comment on our post. If you want to go above and beyond, please share the CrazyFaceUno Podcast with your friends and family or random strangers on the street. We're welcome to everyone. Once again, please visit CrazyFaceUno.com where you can buy our merchandise and donate. Your contribution helps us tell and share more stories like Gabby's and the stories just like yours. We appreciate you. Thank you again for listening. We love you all. Peace!